Alright, today I think we should try to put a fuel pump on the engine. I don't know, get started at least on doing some of these things. I want to make this thing run on the engine stand. Oh, where am I pointing?
Okay,
it's over there, trust me. Anyway, I want to start it on the engine stand. I want to prove out that my really old Megasquirt can actually fire this thing up. I've got an old fuel pump from this car, and I got some fuel line. Let's just go through it.
Alright, so now that we find out the old pan here, that's still on the ground, we'll put in the car.
I got a fuel pump that came out of the Caprice. That was a stock pump, and like a jerk I cut these wires off right there, thinking that would save me as much wire as possible for the Walbro 450 E85 pump that I replaced it with. But these two posts are electrically the same as the two wires, so you can just solder on to those two spots with this wire here. So that should work out. And we got a couple of battery cables, so we could put a ground over here, and we could put positive on the starter.
Hey, bud!
What? I got this freeze plug. It's a 35 millimeter, and I believe.
Okay, Jay, let me tell you something. I want to tell you something.
I believe that this hole here
Daddy!
can be plugged by this 35 millimeter plug with a little bit of RTV.
Daddy!
That'll cure a vacuum leak.
Daddy!
There's one more hole up here that I think we need to put a temperature sensor in. I think I have that somewhere. I need to go looking for it. I got all this fuel line. I got 3/8 and 5/16, and I got this ignition switch off of one of the old figure 8 cars. All these posts are labeled like battery and ignition and start. Should we just get the fuel pump hoses put together today? Thumbs up. Alright, one other thing to note. The fuel lines I bought are not for high pressure, 50 psi. That is carburetor fuel line. This regulator is supposed to regulate to 58 psi, and I kind of am just hoping that this will work for a test rig anyway. I won't be getting it to super high temperatures. I jumped the gun yesterday. I didn't have enough stuff to figure out where my wires had to run, so I brought more things out today. I found some old stuff I had forgotten I bought. I've been watching Matt Happel since like 2012 and collecting a few little parts here and there when I could. So back then, I believe this sort of temperature sensor is what he was using for the air inlet. There it goes. So this isn't anything special. I believe it's something that was used for either air temp or water temp. Where's the light good? There's a couple pins in there. This is basically a resistor that changes with temp. And he said he jammed it in there. That looks like a tight fit. I think you might have to drill it a bit. So I'll do that. This 35 millimeter freeze plug seems to fit kind of tight, but I think that's going to work great. The helper's here. I got all my stuff here. I cleaned this out, and as you'd expect from exhaust gas recirculating, there's a lot of black nastiness in there. Here's my cap. This 24 millimeter socket seems to fit nice. That works so good. I believe the sloppy mechanics method for installing these sensors in 2012 was something like this. Can't believe I'm gonna do this. Maybe I won't. I think I'm gonna drill it. This feels like a tight fit. This needed some drilling out to be able to fit the sensor. And my largest drill bit wasn't enough, so I kept trying to wob it out, and I eventually started filing, and I went a little too far because it drops in there now pretty easily. Yeah, there's some spots where it sticks, so hopefully there's enough stick there that I can put some goo on it and it'll hold pressure. Oh boy. I made a harness for this thing, I don't remember how many years ago, but I just plugged it all back in except for the intake air temp sensor is still a little bit loose in there, so I'm going to let that cure for a while. But I've got my TPS, throttle position sensor, coolant temp sensor, got the injectors and the coil drivers wired. Got a bunch of grounds on the back of the block there. And over on this side, just injectors and coil drivers. There's a bunch of power connections here that run back to this fuse block eventually. And a bunch of relays out of an old Grand Am. And some power cables, and I don't remember how it all connects, so I need to go find that schematic. Back in the barn working on the engine a little bit here and there, and today I'll show you, got a few things done. We got exhaust manifolds on, and dipstick fit. I don't think it'll read right, but I'm just going to put 7 quarts in it. I've got my ignition switch for now. Got the wiring harness just going down. That's fuses. This is the connector that goes to the Megasquirt. I think I might have to do a lot of rewiring inside of that and possibly move some wires on that connector, but that's all stuff I can do on rainy days. Got the siliconed in intake air temp sensor. It wiggles a bit, but feels solid. I think I already talked about that thing. What else? I was looking all over, how do you plug into the manifold air pressure sensor? And I forgot the Megasquirt has its own internal. I just have to run a vacuum hose to it. It's been a long time. So right now we're going to put in the highest quality oil you can get. Are you ready to work on the engine today? Yeah. We're back in the garage. I had some mistakes I need to tell you about. If you get the TSP 81075 oil pan. This is my trusty low dollar oil filter for the LS 3rd gen motors. It did not fit. The TSP pan fits a 3rd gen motor, but the 3rd gen oil filter doesn't go on it. A 4th gen oil filter goes on it. So that's the Delco PF48E. And I had a few Fram numbers that fit it. There's a few filters that fit this oil pan. So, goal today is to put the filter on, put some cheap oil in, then crank her over and see how much plastic from the intake manifold comes out the exhaust, and hopefully circulate some oil through it. The Megasquirt is still not here. I've got some research to do on how to switch to MS2 from MS1. It looks like I should move some of the wiring here for my spark outputs. Apparently MS2 can control idle air controller, which would be nice. I wasn't planning on that because I thought I'd be running MS1. So 7 quarts into my 5 or 6 quart pan. I didn't realize there was instructions online until the end of this, if I'm honest. But no, don't clank that right now. But we like to run extra oil in our engines anyway, in case you go around a corner too fast and uncover the oil pickup. So I'm sure this is going to say way too much. Full is right here, and I'm right about there. Right at the end of the word operating, before the word range. So I'm going to call that my full mark from now on. It also says in the instructions that you should change your dipstick to a, I forget. If you're going to do this, read the instructions. But that's how I'm doing it. How much is going to come flying out of these exhaust ports? Nothing more really came out of the exhaust manifolds. The first time I did this, I didn't have the manifolds on, and a whole bunch of plastic shot out of some of these ports right on the floor. So when I was drilling this, I kept using just a little bit bigger drill bit every time, so hopefully it would be small bits and it wouldn't jam a piston. Should have done that before I put the intake on, but oh well. Compression doesn't sound too even, but it is what it is. We'll see how it goes. I think the next thing I need to do is figure out the Megasquirt, get my pins moved, and get the Megasquirt swapped over to MS2, write a file for it. I'm not going to put any of that on camera because I'm sure I'm just going to struggle and take 2 months, but hopefully the next video is me verifying some signals and maybe doing a test fire. That's kind of the point of putting it on the stand like this.